Ever since the invention of the TV guide that shows up right on our screens, we've relied on them to give us a roundabout idea of what we're about to watch. That way we can know what we're getting into if we've never seen a particular show or movie before. Now you might be saying, Bonanza babe, what in tarnation's this got to do with anything? Or you might have an obsessive eye like me and already know where I'm going with this. Now if you're the latter, don't brag. Just take your cookie and sit back down while I explain to the rest of the class. I hope you like Snickerdoodle. That's all Hop Sing made. I wouldn't recommend questioning him on it. You know how he can get. In all seriousness, the guide for this one assures us that Adam is taken prisoner by men who escaped from the army. Those of you who enjoy a good suffering Adam syndrome, trademark bonanzaworld.net, might get excited by this. You might think you're in for an Adam-centric episode. Those of you Joe gals might be wondering why he gets to have another Sexy Wounds episode when we just did that not long ago in Blood on the Land. To both of you, I say, have another cookie and stop worrying. The truth is far more boring than that. I promise. Go ahead and ask Hop Sing for a cup of coffee if you like, but I'm told it's not his specialty, so you might just have to rely on your own brain power to stay focused for this one. Extra points if you've been watching the show long enough to know what episode I'm referencing here. The only hint I'll give you is that we've got quite a while yet for that one, and it wasn't focused on a specific Cartwright either. That being said, I love that one far more than the one we're about to talk about. We do indeed open on three men in army garb and one carrying a chain. Joe and Adam are rounding upstairs nearby, and Adam says he's going to keep at it as Joe heads back, but not before asking, "You'll be along after that?" in the cutest tone I've ever heard. Maybe this episode is more fun than I remember. They're feeding my Joe Adam moments addiction in the first scene. It doesn't last long, though, as Adam stumbles upon those prisoners I mentioned, and the one with the chain wraps it around him and drags him out of frame. And the credits roll. So, do they attack him? Yes. Do they take him prisoner? Let's find out. By the way, just before Adam confronts them, one of them is shocked that the place the other man is planning to hide them out at belongs to a girl. Joe makes it home to find Hoss building a house of cards. He's the baby of the family, so he can't resist blowing it down. That burned brat. Oh, I love him so much. Can we keep him? Hoss is understandably upset. He chases Joe around the room, forgetting that the kid can fly. We learned that in A Rose for Lotta. Ben comes through the door, and Joe hides behind him. They begin discussing a neighbor girl named Netta, who Hoss assures Ben Joe would be a perfect husband for. Okay, I know he did something bratty to you, big brother, but do you really think making him get married is a fitting punishment? The girl didn't do anything to you, after all. Yeah, I hear the Joe gals booing me. I'm just teasing. I told you, I love Joe. Just wait until next month's video if you don't believe me. They call Netta a real handsome woman. We've heard so much about her already, she must be the best-looking gal they've ever had on the show. Before we can elaborate further, Captain Bolton and his men come knocking to inquire about three men who escaped from the army prison. He's a real charmer who doesn't allow his men to leave their post for a cup of coffee. Remind me never to enlist. Ben is offended by this man's blunt rudeness and won't let him search the house, although we know there's nothing he's hiding. The soldiers call out because there's a wounded man riding in. Adam made it back home with a nice crack to his Cartwright skull. Again, they've got my attention because the concern on Joe's face is hitting that sweet dopamine drip straight to my brain. Hoss wants to go after the men who did it. Adam says he doesn't know much except that he could hear through the clouds in his mind that they were debating on whether or not to kill him. Meanwhile, Mertz, the one with the chain who attacked Adam, is left behind as the other two head for Miss Netta's place. They say that the chains will scare her, but they'll come back, they pinky swear. One of the men seems to mean it more than the other one. When the army, followed by what's left of the ambulatory Cartwrights, find Mertz, Bolton wants to attack him right there, but Ben defends him. If we knew less about Ben's character, we might wonder if he'd be doing that had he been told that this was the man who hit his son in the head so hard it almost killed him. We know Ben, though, so we know he'd still defend this man's right to fair treatment within the law. The captain isn't the same type of man. Mertz is taken in nonetheless. At Netta's place, there's a sick horse down in the barn. Jimmy, the man who knows Netta, sneaks up behind her and is lucky that wasn't me. You don't sneak up on a girl who lives by herself like that if you don't want to get clobbered. Sure, he thinks her father's there, but she's alone right now, so same deal. Paul takes a different approach. He's shy and seems to care about animals. We learn that Netta's father never liked Jimmy much, and then we learn that he has since passed away. Jimmy says he's sorry, but I get the feeling he's probably not. They lie to Netta, or more accurately, Jimmy lies and Paul keeps quiet. Ben goes above Bolton's head to his friend the Colonel. Unfortunately, it seems, at least in Ben's presence, that the Colonel is taking his man's side. He informs Ben that the Sioux tortured Bolton, and that's why his arm is permanently injured. I gotta be honest, I didn't even notice the injury. I thought he just held it that way as some sort of stately pose. Oh, by the way, Mertz is dead. He tried to escape, allegedly. Go figure. Apparently, all of the men in Bolton's command are hard cases and outcasts to the army. Do with that what you will. Ben leaves, and the Colonel tells Bolton that he'd better earn that defense he just got. Oh, and he also gives him a warrant to search the Ponderosa without Ben's consent. Hoss stops by Netta's place, and she gives him some excuse about the stove for why she's not inviting him in. He offers to fix it, and she declines. For all the teasing about Joe marrying her, Hoss would be really cute with her. I'm just saying. As soon as Hoss is gone, she questions Jimmy and Paul because she's starting to show signs of intelligence. And she's no damsel. Paul admits that they are in fact the men that Hoss told her are missing from the army. When Jimmy tells her how Bolton is, she lets them stay. At home that night, Adam's got a nice little bandage on his head and is already tired of staying home. He perks up at the prospect of having anything to do in this episode but look sexy while in pain. Ben shoots him down, metaphorically, and orders him to stay off screen for the rest of the episode. Netta and Paul bond while doing everything to save the sick horse. He opens up to her about how much better he finds animals to be than people. I already like him. He thinks about others besides himself. Jimmy seems to only care about saving his own life and getting away from Bolton's purview forever. Netta finds out that Paul's back is scarred from whippings done by Bolton. Ben ambushes them, but Jimmy hits him over the head. Jimmy wants to kill him. Paul refuses. They argue, and Jimmy accuses Paul of getting with his girl. Hoss and Joe get in, and they watch the men while Ben takes their tags to the fort to prove he has them and that he wants them to be taken in safely. Netta got to him by asking what he would do if this were Hoss or Joe. No one mentions Adam, who actually did get hurt. That being said, the way Joe leans up against the door makes you wonder if he hasn't been watching older brother for a while. Hoss notices a kindred spirit in Paul Tyler by seeing him with the horse. He wonders what such a man could have done to become an army criminal. Turns out Paul disobeyed an order because he didn't know the full story. He thought he was leading his 27 men against 400 Apaches with no backup. In truth, they were only supposed to be one part of the attack. Those men were spared, but the others were wiped out. Netta comes to his defense, and Hoss tells her that he was wrong. No matter whose side you're on, I think we can all agree it probably pays to tell your officers what the full plan is. Bolton intercepts Ben en route to the fort. Finding the tags in Ben's bag is all the proof he needs. The final showdown begins with Jimmy taking Joe's gun and Bolton shooting him and seeming to kill him. Seeing this, Netta tries to get Paul to run away with her, but he won't run again. When he turns himself in, Bolton acts like he has a gun when everyone there knows he doesn't. Ben saves him by getting in Bolton's way. Bolton goes to kill Ben. Jimmy is still alive and uses his final strength to kill Bolton. Tyler goes back to face a better army punishment, and Netta waits for him. Joe Moross as Jimmy Sutton is good, and his character is interesting. He's meant to seem selfish, but at the same time he didn't deserve what happened to him and does die after one final act of redemption. I don't feel like he really ever cared about Netta one way or the other, but you can't blame him for wanting to be safe. Gloria Talbot as Netta is a good casting for a strong woman character who perhaps is underestimated because she's small. She's having to run that ranch all by herself, and she does stand up to Jimmy when she finds out that he lied to her. When I first saw this episode, I mistook her for Faye Spain, who played Sue Ellen Terry in The Sisters. Grant Williams as Paul Tyler is good casting as a sensitive man who is traumatized by his mistakes and has an obvious love of animals. Chris Alcade as Bolton is perfect. He's typecast as a villain, and I can totally see why. Dayton Loomis as Lieutenant Colonel Metcalf is there briefly, but has the look of an important man. That's why we'll see him again in such roles. We'll also see Sherwood Price again, who didn't really get much in the way of a speaking role this time. And James Parnell as Mertz has a brief role, but he fits pretty well for a man who is maybe considered a little slow and taken advantage of by the others. For all of my complaining, I don't hate this one. If you don't mind an episode that isn't quite centered around our main characters, this is an okay ride. The title messes with my brain a little because I want to put a "the" in the middle. It grates on me anytime someone refers to the ranch as Ponderosa and not the Ponderosa. In fairness to me, Ben typically uses "though" in referencing to it, and it's his land, so I'm going to go by that metric. So that's really all I've got for this one. I love the character moments between our guys. The other characters are fine and for what they're meant to do. How do you feel about this one? Do you prefer the more Cartwright-centric episodes? We're starting another year, so if you're not subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you click that button. As I teased a bit earlier, we're gonna celebrate Love Month with a video all about the Cartwright family lover boy himself. Stay tuned.